What would you say to the next generation that wants to go move and work in New York coming out of Paris?
Don't care about your accent anymore. In the States, we don't care about that.
We all have an accent.
Exactly. Whether you're from San Diego, from Boston, wherever. Then I tell them, do not hesitate. Be bold. Third advice would be being ambitious. It's not an insult. How can you reach the sky if you're not even believe in it? That would be my three pieces of advice.
Community defines us, and the entrepreneurial spirit inspires us. That's why we're shining a light on the visionaries at the heart of our community. Welcome to Build the City for Good, a podcast by Daphne. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Build the City for Good. My name is Erica. I'm a part of the communications team here at Daphne, and today we are delighted to be joined by entrepreneur Nicolas Briest. Nicolas is the co-founder and former CEO of Be Relax. That's the leading and largest airport spa in the world. And Nicolas has spent a lot of time working in both France and in the United States. So he's going to be sharing with us some of his experiences and insights on the entrepreneurial and tech landscapes between the two countries. Nicolas, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much to you. Thank you for hosting me.
Absolutely. We are also joined by Cris, one of our investors here at Daphne, who has also worked in both France and in the US. Cris, thank you for being here. How's it going?
All good. I'm kind of paid to be here, so I'll be happy.
Nicolas, you've had over 20 years of success in leading a global business. And before we get into your experiences as a C-level executive, we'd love to get to know you better. Can you tell us something about yourself, where you're from, and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. So I'm Nicolas Briest. I'm 45 years old, father of two young kids, by the way, 3 and 7. I've got a dog, a cow also, happily married. So I'm born and raised in Paris, but more or less spend almost, I'd say, half of my time in the US. Whether it was in New York City for most of the time, Boston, where we lived like the last 4 years, LA as well, and I studied a bit in the US as well as in France. I've been a CEO, founder, board member of several ventures, the most famous ones being Be Relax, and I'm sure we're going to be back to that, but I'm just pretty happy to be around you and pretty happy to be one of your hosts at Daphne. It seems that people are extremely energetic, extremely motivated here in that environment. And I wanted to mention it to our listeners because it's not just about good vibes. And I think it's important to say that, especially in a very chaotic world with an international situation that's becoming day after day quite more and more complex. And so thank you once again for being there.
No, thank you so much for these kind words. That means a lot to us. And, you know, the feeling goes both ways. We feel you have the same energy, and it's one of the reasons why we're so happy to have you as part of the Daphne community.
Yeah, totally. And then honestly, when Erica asked me to co-host, I was stalking you a little bit. And then I say, how come someone says, you know what, this is a great business, I should start an airport spa community, and how come do you make a huge business out of that? So what was the vision? What did you see in the market that people were not seeing?
Yeah, sure. So, know that business we started, I started, but at the end of the day, it was a bunch of high school friends that started a business like almost 20 years ago. And back then, remember, we were a couple of years after 9/11. So it was the beginning of what is very common now, as to say, post-security areas at airports, screening everywhere. But back then there was nothing like that. So we kind of noticed that change, and being brought up in New York City and in Paris, where we could see that in New York City you could get a 10-minute manicure in a day spa, for example, or a chair massage in a Central Park. And we noticed that at that time and still now, I mean, airports are all about predictable crowds, tight schedules, stressed out travelers, and you get a captive audience. So we said to each other, you know what, there's definitely an opportunity there, and that's how we started with that spa business in order to try to extract passengers from that chaotic environment, you know.
So a little oasis in
little dose of calm, beauty, relaxation, me time, as we say today.
And then the business started started in the US.
It started here at Charles de Gaulle Airport, right in Terminal 2F. So we started just with a few, like kind of a pop-up island. So very small space with partition walls where we started with a few massage therapists just providing massage. And then after that, we understood there was more need than just massages. So we added manicure, pedicure, waxing, facials to our range of services. We added also products such as travel accessories, such as neck pillows, sleep masks, nail lacquers, cosmetics, anti-stress balls, a lot of products in order to complement their well-being experience with us. And so we started here in Paris in 2004, then expanded to Germany, then to Italy, then to the UK, well, Switzerland. Then we started being pretty much done with Europe. So we started in the Middle East with Qatar, the Emirates, Oman, and then the US. The US in 2012, where we started with BWI, so Baltimore, Washington International Airport, and Boston Logan.
Awesome. And how was closing that first deal in the US?
The first deal in the US was pretty easy because at that time we were operating at London Heathrow International Airport, and they had a couple of airports in the US, and so we were doing so well. They told us, "Do you want to go overseas?" We've got a couple of airports such as Cleveland, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, and so on. And so they started, "You want to be in Baltimore?" Yes, why not? That's how we started. And from that, we understood that there was massive white space in the US for our business model. There was quite a competitor as well. And we started from there, and I moved out to New York City in order to expand our business. We increased our success rates at airports. You know, when you want to get a store at an airport, you don't call an airport decision maker and tell him or her, "Hey, I want to rent a store from your space or from your terminal." That doesn't work that way. I mean, you got to go through what we call an RFP or a tender. So more or less, that's a competitive, let's say, contest where you need a bid for certain locations within the terminal. And so our physical presence in New York allowed us to increase our, let's say, success rate by 33% to 75% in just a few years, and it almost allowed us to. We were on the verge just before COVID. We were about acquiring our major competitor, which is a company publicly listed on NASDAQ, Express Spa, that was twice our size back then. But unfortunately, in 2019, 2020, the world sent us a curveball, and COVID happened. So it was very, very difficult for a company such as ours, very much intertwined with travelers. We got decimated. I mean, before COVID, we had a company, probably 55 locations worldwide, directly owned and operated, like 700 employees, over $20 million in sales, double-digit EBITDA. And so in 4 months, we had to furlough almost 90% of our workforce. So we had to make very difficult decisions, such as renegotiating all the tricky airport leases, such as trying to secure rescue financing, such as terminating most of our people at least for some time. But having said that, we never lost sight of what was very important to us and to our values, is to say we were people-centric business, in the service industry. And that's something, by the way, we were very proud of. And I think we were 20 years ago, we were pretty much ahead of the curve in regard to the employee well-being. So 20 years ago, we created schools for our employees for related to their happiness, but also to continuing education. That was very important for us to have licensed people in massage, but they could treat, they could also provide nail services or pedicures or waxing and so on. So we always believe that run such a company, you don't need to have graduated from Harvard University or from Polytechnique here in France, but you need to treat your customers and in a very nice way, to be very welcoming, to be a goal-getter. And so what was very important to us is that we were convinced from the very beginning that happy employees made a happy business. And that's what we always kept very, very attached to that value. And that's something we've been always proud of.
With that care for employees, you need to deal with something, a curveball, like you say, like COVID, and then try to get out of it. Is there any key learnings that you got from that experience, from that tough period, and that will make you a better entrepreneur moving forward?
First, I think it's important to mention it. We had the support from our financial backers, lending institutions, of course, bankers, shareholders, employees as well. I think we had also even if it was difficult to renegotiate leases with airports, we were backed by airports as well. What we've learned from that was to be extremely reactive, extremely nimble. But I think that's what characterized our company from the very beginning. The thing that changed is that we were able during the pandemic, for example, to, let's say, reposition our retail activity, because we often talk about Be Relax as a service provider, providing massages or well-being treatments. But at the end of the day, 45% of our P&L is composed of retail. And so obviously during the pandemic, people didn't care anymore about sleep masks or neck pillows, but they were more into masks, into gel, into anything that could fight supposedly against the germs that were floating around the air. And so we were pretty good and quickly good at repositioning our retail from let's say a well-being / relaxation positioning to a more safety / anti-COVID product line. That's what we were pretty successful at. What did we learn is that we learn how to be better fighters in terms of leases at airports. We were pretty better at we were good at renegotiating leases. And I think before COVID, we were just into growth, and not really care not as much as what it was required in order to be very, very careful and cautious about our cash flows. So that was one of the top lessons for us. But I want to mention that we bounced back pretty fast. It's probably not even after 2 years after the pandemic started, we surpassed already our pre-pandemic figures, and we were more profitable. So we bounced back super easily.
When you first expanded Be Relax into the United States, what was that experience like, integrating yourself into the American ecosystem? Was it difficult? Was it relatively smooth?
For me personally, it was pretty smooth, given the fact that I studied in the US, given the fact that my two kids, they are dual citizens, given the fact that I've been living most of my time in the US. But I must say that for some members at Be Relax, it was difficult. I can mention a few examples that probably are going to make you smile. Here, it's not very common in Europe, but the at-will employment system in the US. So more or less, people, they don't sign any contracts. they don't even sign the employee handbook most of the time, let's say it. And so we have our people working on the field. I'm not talking about managers or supervisors, but like, for example, a massage therapist or a nail technician. I mean, they come to our stores, they work for a few hours here and there, they get a, usually most of the time they're commission based, but at the very beginning I spent like all CEOs most of my time on the field. And I remember it was in Baltimore at 2 a.m. I don't know what I was doing, but first when you say 2 a.m. at Walmart, I mean, obviously in Europe, it's nothing like that happens, but it exists. But I don't know what I needed for the store. It seems that I stumbled into one of my employees at that Walmart store, and she says, I remember it pretty well. She says to me, Nicholas, I'm warning you, if you're going to make my pay down, I'm going to sue you, you know? I mean, that's kind of mean, but it's kind of brutal. But I think so, maybe like that in the US. But I told her right away, you know what? I mean, at the end of the day, I'm European as well, and in Europe, we don't behave that way. So if one day I want to make your pay down, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to terminate you. I'm going to give you a warning. I'm not going to be as brutal as people can be here in the country. So another example, kind of funny for Europeans to hear, is we had till our major fundraising in 2018 or 19, we had our own warehouses. So where we had employees, so we had one in Boston, we had one in Dubai, one in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands. I made the decision that we need to outsource our warehouses to a 3PL system. And so I told our head of operations, 100% American, born and raised in Boston with a strong, wicked accent. I told her, you know what, we got a great guy working in the warehouse for the last few years. It's great. It's been hardworking, very committed, but we're going to have to let him go. He's been doing good. So at the end of the day, I mean, do whatever you want. But if you need to write him a letter of recommendation, if you want to give him some severance, a 2-week notice, there's no problem. I mean, he's a good guy. So do whatever you want. A couple of days later, I come back to the office and I say, okay, oh, by the way, where's the guy? Where's the guy in the warehouse? Oh, she told me it was Friday, so it was a payday. So I let him go because it's a way more convenient that way. And I said, but come on, we talked about 2 days ago, so it was that fast? She told me, yeah, he was super happy. I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't give nothing. I mean, not even a severance. But she told me, I mean, how could that happen? She told me, you know what? The guy was super happy. He thanked me for the opportunity. He even told me that, in fact, you know, being a logistician was not his cup of tea. So, in fact, he was thankful for the company to make him realize that probably he would pursue other purposes in life. And that's how things can be very fluid in the US. And that's what European people, of course, are not comfortable with, because the system works in a different way, you know.
And then in the sense of doing business and the entrepreneurial experience in the US and in Europe, because you started the company here, but there I assume you encountered a lot of entrepreneurs, and building the business and growing the business is also an act of entrepreneurship, renewed entrepreneurship. So what was the experience in both countries? What is better in the US? What is better in Europe?
What's better in the US? I mean, you've got many more opportunities, especially in terms of financing. You got more valuation, more exits, more transactions, more deal structurations and structures. You've got everything that it's more. And so the world's bigger up there. Their relationship towards risk, it's very different as well. I mean, people in the States, they tend to look at the future. I feel that in Europe, it's quite the opposite, where people tend to look at the past. Having said that, in Europe, you've got things that are better. I do believe that people in Europe are better at conceiving projects. They're in the US, they're definitely better at executing things, but less at conceiving. So here in Europe, I think we've got a lot of talents, especially regarding AI, regarding engineers that are great at conceptually speaking. And so that does provide a lot of value added to any endeavors, you know. I try to see at the same time, the glass half full, like the way we say it in the US, and also half empty is the way we say it in Europe, in order to get the best out of the two.
It's funny because I'm Brazilian. I lived. I had a chance to immigrate both to the U.S. and to France, and I felt that I could achieve anything professionally in the US, but I feel that my lifestyle and my life here is better, and I'm a happier person.
I agree with that.
Totally do agree with that. And I think Americans do as well. I mean, most of my US friends, they tell me, you know what, I'm going to work hard, play hard in the US, and then why do I want to retire? On the French Riviera.
Yep.
But I feel, and it's a feeling slowly that gap is closing. You go both ways, and you're in the bridge. What is your feeling? Do you feel that slowly Europe is closing the gap in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of doing business, being faster, more execution driven?
Yes, on certain items, what I felt is that in the US nowadays, way more than 20 years ago, that's quite converging with Europe as well, is that there's way more about not just money anymore, it's about the impact, it's about social responsibility, it's about purpose. Back days in the US, it was not as present as much present as now. So I feel that's where the two countries kind of converge.
You talk a little bit about some of the cultural differences. Can you identify a couple more between France and the United States as it pertains to entrepreneurship? And what are some things that you think we should be aware of, especially when doing business internationally?
So there's the relationship, as I said, towards risk. The fact that there's French people or Europeans are way more critical than Americans. I think in Europe, things are way more regulated. There's way less freedom, but at the end of the day, it's due to the lack of trust. So Americans trust their future, their beliefs. There's no scarcity. There's going to be enough food for everybody. There's going to be enough for, they believe in abundance. In Europe, that's more about belonging. That's more about the fact that failure is unbearable. In America, it's action-driven. In Europe, it's more towards your inner selves, towards critical thinking. Having said that, I think we needed the two components in order to build a great company or to build a great individuals. You know.
In Be Relax and your careers in entrepreneurship, what are some ways that being French and being European helped you set yourself apart in the US?
So the thing in a spa business, you know, when you are supposed to represent beauty, well-being, that you want to launch cosmetics, that's sure that the French ecosystem is very powerful and renowned for that. Especially when you got a competitor such as ours, his name is Expressman, and it was very, let's say, not refined in his approach to aesthetics, to treating customers, that made a difference.
I also saw that you're part of the New England French American Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Do you find that being a part of these types of organizations as an immigrant in the U.S. is helpful? And what are some of the resources and benefits that this organization provides to the members?
Currently, I'm a board member of the French American Chamber of Commerce. Before, when I lived in New York City, I was part of the French founders community. So it helps a lot, especially that's all about relationships and about getting the right connections, getting the right attorneys, lawyers, getting the right, political connections, especially in our world. I mean, at airports, I mean, in order to secure locations, you need to get the right entries within the within the administration running the board of airports. So that's very important. But at the end of the day, I mean, also being part of that those organizations, it's also about giving back to young people that are just arriving in the States, that want to make it, that have dreams, and that need to get pieces of advice, financing, whatever they require in order to advance their careers or their goals,
And then speaking about giving back and helping the next generation, what would you say to the next generation that wants to go move and work in New York coming out of Paris? What are some kind of like great to-dos and not to-dos?
Don't care about your accent anymore. In the States, we don't care about that.
We all have an accent.
Exactly. Whether you're from San Diego, from Boston, wherever, that's a country built upon so many different other countries. Then I tell them, do not hesitate. Be bold. Here in France, you want to have an appointment, whether it's with a business colleague or whatever it is. They're gonna tell you, you're gonna receive, okay, you know what, I'm in a vacation now, so let's sit down and let's take an appointment in 2 weeks from now. I mean, in the US, you don't care. I mean, if they have time, if it happens that you're at the right time, they might just tell you, you know what, come up to my office in the next 15 minutes and we're gonna have a 10-minute conversation. That's how it goes. And so my second advice would be bold. Third advice would be being ambitious. It's not an insult. It's not being arrogant. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, how can you reach the sky if you're not even believe in it? And that's what is the US like. That would be my 3 pieces of advice.
And to Chris's point earlier about the next generation, Nicolas, you're also a professor at Holt Business School in the United States. What do you teach, and what's something that your students are particularly interested in or passionate about right now?
So I do teach at Holt Business School. I'm what we call a professor of practice in finance. As you understood, I'm very human relationships impact on the world are very deeply embedded within to my my approach to life and business. But I am also a man of numbers and data, so I teach finance. So finance, usually I do in my portfolio like kind of 3 classes. The first one being business analysis and valuation. By the way, that's for a grad, a postgrad, and MBA students. Then I've got another course that is pretty fun. It's the entrepreneurial finance. And the third course that I teach, but it speaks for itself, it's accounting fundamentals. So, by the way, I'm coming back from New York. 2 days ago, I was in New York and Boston. And among my classes, I was honored to be chosen by Holt University as one of their judges for their $1 million annual prize for one of their startups. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said that, but now that's all about AI and automation. Let me tell you, out of the 14, 15 finalists, 13 or 14 out of them had a pitch and a value proposition around AI and automation. Today, at least in the States, and at least from what I gathered lately, that's all about that.
And it comes to our previous point of being fast to adapt and understand, because at the end of the day, if it's a transformational technology, every company will have to become an AI company.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
and that's what we see.
And before we talk about some of your other endeavors, I'm curious to know from your perspective, what should Europeans do to be optimistic about the future of our ecosystem?
Trust yourselves. I mean, at the end of the day, I think about the future, not as something that's might be a doom. That's what I say, and I no judging in that at all. But for example, people are saying in the US that's all about conquering Mars, because that's the Americans, or they don't want to lose an upcoming opportunity. French people, they say, you know what, at the end of the day, we want to preserve Earth. Yeah, that's fine. But once again, that pertains to the past, which is fine, and we need to do it that way. And I'm not challenging that at all. But at the end of the day, that's about trusting the future. And so I think for Europeans and for French people, especially, it's about being less critical, because there's a lot of talent, there's a lot of wealth. There's a lot in Europe, but I mean, be less self-critical, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna do more, and you're gonna do great.
Thank you. Those are some really good things to keep in mind. I want to take a moment now to highlight some of the other projects that you've built and that you manage. One of them being a museum that is in one of our airports here in Paris. Tell us a little bit about this project.
We opened a museum, a fine art museum at Charles de Gaulle Airport. And why I wanted to say that, I wanted to take the opportunity also to thank the people that made it possible. That's an endowment fund. that's self-financed, and that's we have a museum located at the heart of Terminal 2E at Charles de Gaulle. That's free for all. We have more or less 500,000 visitors per year, and we bring iconic masterpieces from a renowned museum in Paris, such as Museum Orsay, Picasso Museum, and so on. So we had the chance, for example, to have brought the Kiss or the Thinker from the Rodin Museum a couple of years ago. And so I wanna thank the people that made it possible. And I want to thank my dad, which was an auctioneer. I want to thank his good friend, the former president of Orsay Museum, Serge Lemoine. And I want to thank also Anne, who's the coordinator and the matchmaker, all of that. Next time you travel, and if you go to Brazil, probably Flying Sky Team, you're going to have a chance to look at that great venture that's very uncommon, and to bring some beauty, something that's not 100% about money from time to time. It's quite rewarding, I must say.
Amazing tip for the listener, Terminal 2E.
Terminal 2E, yes, sir. I was also involved in what we call the B gourmet experience, the typical food court experience at the airport where you had just this fast food options. We wanted to elevate the culinary experience at airports. So we were the first ones back then to hire a Michelin star chef at Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, and we were the first one to bring a table service with a star chef. By the way, French American chef. His name is Gilles Epier. He works in DC now, and he was Man of the Year of Time magazine in 1996, so 25 years ago, and he was running l'Orangerie in Los Angeles, and so he worked with us at Charles de Gaulle Airport, and we kind of paved the way for something that became very mainstream now. The fact that quality may happen at airports as well, and that at the end of the day, if you have a nice product, if you got a good product and there's a need, I mean, people are willing to pay for it.
And I like to say that entrepreneurship, it's a calling, not a choice. So it appears that you've been called for entrepreneurship. What is your key driver internally to keep innovating and keep starting the new ideas?
My hate word is no, or impossible. So that's kind of the trigger for me. If you start telling me no, that's impossible, I might...
You're going to go for it.
That might happen.
Well, to close out our conversation, Cris and I have prepared a few rapid fire questions for you. The first one is, you've spent a lot of time in Boston. The next time I'm there, where should I go? What should I see? What should I do?
That's a good question. There's so many places to see in Boston, but I mean, there's a place that I like very much. It's the national landmark, by the way, Faneuil Hall. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's a landmark. It's where Samuel Adams, for example, James Otis delivered the speeches in order to fight against the Brits in the old days. Now it's a marketplace along next to the waterfront. It's kind of a mall as well, but it's a great environment. There's another place that I think of. It's further up north, by the way. If you want to find a kind of a still secluded place where you got a nice stretch of sand, you've got the Crane Beach. I think that's something that's less hectic than the city of Boston. If you've got kids and you want to spend a good time, pretty relaxing with a water, ocean water, that's a nice place to be,
And also Foxborough.
Foxborough, for sure.
Watching the Patriots.
Yeah. Gillette Stadium.
And then if you could invite anyone to go have a Michelin dinner and watch some art pieces in the Charles de Gaulle airport with you, who would you invite living in that?
Yeah. For me, Picasso.
Picasso?
The game changer. I mean, as I told you, my dad is an auctioneer, and so art it's very important to me and to my family. So Picasso was to me the game changer.
Do you have a favorite Picasso painting?
Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. 06, 07.
Oh, cool. I don't think I know that one. I'll have to look it up. Nicolas, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. This was such an insightful conversation. So truly thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences with us.
Thank you to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a very special thank you to you, the listener, for taking a moment to listen to this episode. Take care, and we'll see you next time.